before we dive into this story, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and like this video if you, like me, believe that certain trips can change our lives forever. Because, let's be honest, who would have guessed that a simple getaway would turn into something so unexpected? I came back from Santiago with more than just memories. Something I never imagined I would carry, but somehow, it now defines who I am. And before you think this is something superficial, let me warn you, it wasn't just about the destination. It was about something much deeper, something that changes you from the inside out. Curious to know how a trip can change everything? Stick with me until the end, because the story I'm about to share will make you rethink what you know about choices, fate, and what's really possible when we let ourselves get swept up in a moment. Now, leave a comment, share this video with someone who needs to hear a story like this, and of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the emotional revelations ahead. Oh, and if you've been through something like this, let me know in the comments. I'm curious to hear how you handled it. It was supposed to be just another trip. You know, one of those getaways that everyone suggests when you need a break. Just a few days in Santiago, away from the noise, the hustle. But as soon as I stepped off that plane, something shifted. There was something in the air, something that I couldn't quite explain. The way the city whispered its secrets, the way the streets seemed to hum with stories that had yet to be told. And there he was, the one man who had always been around, always present, but never like this. The connection was subtle at first, like a slow burn, and before I knew it, everything started to change. As we walked through the city together, I couldn't ignore how the little moments started to stand out. A casual glance that lingered a second too long. A smile that carried an unspoken promise. It wasn't obvious. Not in the way you might expect a romance to unfold. But there was something undeniable between us. Something that neither of us had planned for. The evening skies, the distant laughter from the cafes. All of it seemed to blur together into something more. A realization that we were walking down a path we hadn't intended to take. We shared more than just space on this trip. Our conversations became longer, more personal. The wine flowed, but it wasn't the alcohol that made my thoughts feel clouded. It was him. The way his presence seemed to fill the room, like the air itself was charged with tension. It was as if we were two puzzle pieces, slowly but surely locking into place. There was something intimate but not overt, just an understanding that we were both aware of what was happening, yet neither of us knew exactly where it was leading. And then, as the trip went on, I began to feel it, a shift, a subtle change in how I saw him, in how I felt when he was near. It wasn't just a friendship anymore. There was something more, something I couldn't ignore. In those quiet moments, I felt it, this invisible thread connecting us, pulling us closer. And what was meant to be a simple getaway became the beginning of something far more complicated. The trip wasn't just about seeing a new place, it was about discovering something new in myself. But what would happen next? Well, that's a different story. As the days went by, something between us deepened, a tension that wasn't obvious at first, but soon became impossible to ignore. It wasn't loud. It wasn't something that others would notice. But, it was there. It was in the way our eyes met when we weren't talking, in the quiet moments where the world seemed to disappear around us. Every glance felt heavier, more significant, as if the silence between us was a language all its own. Each unspoken word, each lingering look, seemed to carry an understanding that neither of us was brave enough to verbalize. At dinner, we would sit across from each other, and the conversations became fewer. The words we spoke felt almost irrelevant compared to the weight of the silence. I began to notice the smallest things about him. The way he ran his hand through his hair when he was lost in thought, the way his eyes softened when he looked at me. And I couldn't help but feel the pull, this magnetic force between us that neither of us could escape. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, psychological, something deeper, more intimate. It was like an unspoken game we were both playing, and every moment felt like a slow, inevitable build. The wine didn't help, nor did the quiet corners of the city that we explored together. Everything felt amplified. The street lights glowed brighter. The city's hum seemed louder. And yet, in all that noise, the two of us remained in our own world, a world where the tension between us was growing stronger with each passing day. Every smile, every laugh, even every pause, was laden with a meaning only we could understand. It wasn't clear where this would lead, or even if we were both willing to admit it was happening. But I could feel it deep down in the pit of my stomach. This was something real. And no matter how hard we tried to avoid it, the tension was there, woven into every moment we shared. But what happens when the tension reaches its breaking point? How far could we push this? Well, that's a question I wasn't sure I was ready to answer. That night, there was no going back. No matter how much I tried to convince myself otherwise, the moment was inevitable. The city stretched out before us, bathed in the soft glow of the Santiago skyline, and everything that had been building between us suddenly felt like a tidal wave. I had been fighting it, pushing it to the back of my mind, telling myself that we were just two friends caught in a moment. But that night, with the world around us faded into the distance, I realized just how wrong I had been. There was no pretending anymore. It started slow, almost too slow, like the world was waiting for the right moment to shift. We were close, closer than we had ever been before. But still, there was a hesitation, a quiet fear hanging in the air. And then it happened, a touch. Just a light brush of fingers, but it felt like the spark that ignited everything. Suddenly, I wasn't thinking about anything else. It wasn't just about desire. It was something deeper, something I couldn't ignore any longer. There was a surrender in that touch, in that moment, as if both of us were giving in to what had been building between us for days. The conversation stopped. The air thickened. The tension was so palpable that it felt like I could reach out and touch it. And then, with a quiet understanding, we moved closer. The kiss, soft at first, grew deeper, more urgent, as if our bodies knew what our minds had been too scared to admit. There was no turning back now. The line between what was and what could be had blurred. And in that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. This wasn't just about physical attraction. It was an emotional surrender that neither of us was prepared for. As we pulled away, breaths heavy, eyes locked in understanding, I felt something change inside me. I had crossed a line, and there was no erasing it. It wasn't just about the night. It was everything that came with it. The connection, the desire, the realization that we had just shared something that neither of us could ever fully undo. And in the aftermath, all I could think was this: what now? What happens when everything you thought you knew about yourself is suddenly turned upside down? Back home, everything felt different. It wasn't just the weight of the secret I was carrying, though that, in itself, felt heavier than I ever could have imagined. No, it was more than that. It was the way my body seemed to betray me, knowing before my mind could catch up. It wasn't just a feeling, it was a shift, a subtle awareness that I couldn't ignore. And when the test confirmed it, the truth, it was like everything I had built up inside me, everything I had tried to suppress, came rushing to the surface. I was pregnant with his child, and I had no idea how to make sense of it. I didn't tell anyone at first. How could I? How could I explain that what had happened, what had seemed so forbidden, so impossible, was now real? I kept it to myself, letting the quiet revelation settle in. But, of course, it wasn't just a secret I could keep hidden forever. His presence lingered in the back of my mind, and with it, the knowledge that everything had changed. We couldn't undo what we had done. And now, there was a new life growing inside me, a reminder of the choice we had made. When I finally had to tell him, it was just one of those moments where words seemed so small, so insignificant. All I had to do was look at him, and I could see the realization in his eyes. There was no denying it. We were both standing on the edge of something we hadn't planned for, and it felt like everything we knew had just shifted. The weight of the situation hung heavy between us, but the quiet acknowledgement was there. We had crossed a line, and now we were both going to have to figure out what that meant. And so, I carried this secret, this child, in silence, letting it change me, letting it force me to confront everything I had tried to avoid. The truth was undeniable, and so was the reality of what I had done. But now, there was no going back. What had started as a fleeting moment of connection had blossomed into something that would redefine my life forever. How would I move forward from here? And how would everything we had shared shape the life we were about to bring into this world? Now that you've heard this story, what's next for you? The truth is, life is full of moments that can completely alter our path, just like the trip I took. Maybe you've found yourself at a crossroads, struggling with decisions that feel impossible. But here's what I've learned. It's the choices we make in those moments of tension, those moments of vulnerability, that shape who we truly are. So, ask yourself, how will you face the unexpected? Will you shy away, or will you embrace the change, knowing that the way forward often requires us to step into the unknown? If this story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on your own journey. What would you do if you were in my shoes? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below. And if you're ready to learn more about how to navigate life's toughest challenges, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. You never know when the next story will change everything for you.